Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin Galetz, and I'm a program facilitator with the Regina District Industry Education Council and SunWest School Division. And today it's my pleasure to introduce Lexie Adamson, who is a grain farmer north of Rosetown. Lexie will talk to us about what it's like to manage and work on a farm. Lexie serves as an excellent role model for any young female who is farming in their blood and wants to make farming their future. Juggling the demands on the farm while parenting two young children and while your spouse manages a successful business in a town 120 kilometers away is no easy feat, but Lexie does just that. So just a reminder before we begin, this session is being recorded and will appear on the RDIEC YouTube channel for you or others to view in the future. We'd also like to request that any student who watches this session go to our website at www.rdiec.ca and complete the student survey that can be found near the top of the website homepage. Completion of the survey gets your name in a monthly draw for a $50 gift card. Once again, it's www.rdiec.ca. Thanks for doing the session today, Lexie. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and thank you for asking me to do this. This is something I haven't done before, and it's very exciting, and I thank all of you students that are taking the time to watch this today. So as Kevin said, my name is Lexie Adamson, and I am a grain farmer just northeast of Rosetown. Grew up on a mixed farm, and when the time came that I wanted to take over the farm, we had to look at the big picture and the logistics of doing that. And at that time, now 11 years ago, we sold our livestock and went straight grain. So the first thing I'm supposed to share is a job description of a farm, and I'm not even sure how to do that. The farm is different every single day, and your duties change every single day. But some of the main ones I've put up on this slide include operating large equipment. On the farm every day, you're in a piece of equipment. It could be a combine, a tractor, the kind of things you see every day, but there's also lots of stuff going on in the yard with smaller equipment, augers, lawnmowers, endless amounts of maintenance. The next thing you've got to be really good at is bookkeeping duties. To run any business, you know that there's a lot of accounting, but with the farm, you are 100% on your own to market what you grow on your farm. So to do the best that you can do, you've got to be able to make the numbers jive. So you will always hire accountants, but you've also got to understand your books yourself. Time management. The day-to-day farm operations are crucial, especially if you have employees. You've got to be able to manage their time as well as your time on and off the farm. Management of staff, as I kind of touched on already. On our case, on our farm, there's 3 generations of family. So you're working with family, but we also have staff. We have a full-time hired man. And then at seeding and harvest, there can be numerous seasonal workers that we have helping us. So you've got to be able to manage those staff, not only paying them and taking care of them, but finding the good and the bad, what jobs they enjoy, what they're the best at, what they need help on. Consulting marketing type role is crucial on the farm. I kind of talked about that with the bookkeeping duties, but you are purchasing everything you need for your farm to grow your crop to then market it. And that's a big process. A lot of that gets done in the winter time to prep for your next crop. And that also means a lot of meetings. You are meeting with lots of different grain brokers, sellers, consumers. So you've got to be able to host and be a part of a meeting, but you've also got to sell your product. And a mechanic. This is probably my least favorite job and what I'm the worst of on my farm. My brother is very mechanically inclined, thankfully, and that's who I farm with. So we're very good at finding the roles that we're good at. On my farm example, I do quite a bit more of the management bookkeeping side of things, and my brother is very mechanical. But there's always something that needs worked on, improved, or fixed on your farm. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of what happens in the job description of a farmer. Some skills required on the farm. The main one is hardworking and adaptable. As I've mentioned before, every day on the farm is different, and you're very dependent on the weather and what season you're in. You've got to be able to work independently, but also in a group. So there's lots of jobs you will do on the farm that you are completely by yourself, and you've got to problem solve and get the job done. But I'm going to use harvest as a big example. You've got to be able to work in a group setting. You're going to have multiple combines. You could have multiple semis, a grain cart. and many other things going on at harvest. And if you're not all working as a group together in tandem, the job's not going to get done well. Adaptable, I mentioned that. I'll say this many times in my presentation today. A farmer has to be adaptable. Every day something's going to change. You can have a really well laid out plan, but the weather, timing, markets, so many things can change your plan. So you've got to be adaptable. Cautious. I'm going to throw this one out because I'm very cautious. I'm a cautious operator, and I'm a cautious manager. But if you're not cautious and thinking about what could happen next, that's where some danger can happen and some accidents can happen. Understanding of equipment and technology. You are not going to know how to run everything on a farm. You're going to have to learn a lot of this stuff with new technology coming. So you've just got to be adaptable and willing to learn that. And once you learn it, you've got to understand how to operate and remember that from season to season. I'm going to use seeding for an example here. You're only in the seeder for maybe 3 weeks a year. So when you hop into it again, you've got to understand and remember how to run that and be willing to learn it over again. And I threw in 1A license. That is so that you can run air brakes in a semi. Have my 1A. And I'd say nowadays, a 1A is a big, big asset on a grain farm because most of your grain is hauled with a semi. Here is some pictures. I always have to throw some in with my kids. At the bottom right there is my son Barrett and my daughter Maddie. They are with me a lot in the equipment, and they're a big part of the grain operation. They keep us remembering safety, but they also keep us on our toes and make the days fun. The top left, I guess it is picture, is a really cool picture. A salesman took this with a drone, and it's going to be a picture I will always cherish because it shows the teamwork of our farm. So it's hard to see, but if you zoom in, I'm up top on top of the air seeder at the end of the auger. I run the air seeder on our farm, and so I'm up there to fill my tank. And at the bottom of the auger, standing by the semi, is my brother. And so he's the one that takes care of everything to get out to the field for seeding. So on that semi, he's got a trailer of seed and a trailer of fertilizer to fill me up. And then up front by the tractor is my dad with the service truck. And he brings the service truck to fill diesel and do any other servicing we need on the outfit when we're stopped to fill. So I thought that was such a cool shot as it shows multi-generation and all of us working together to get one job done efficiently and fast. Beside it is another drone shot of us seeding. And then the bottom is a morning shot quickly after fueling up the combines at harvest. There's a tractor and grain cart and our 2 combines behind there. Some samples, more samples of equipment used. The one at the top was me fueling up combines one morning, and I kind of just took a bird's eye view waiting for my combine to get filled. So in that picture, I'm obviously standing on top of my combine, and there's that service truck again. That is probably the most important piece of equipment on our farm. My brother actually built that trailer, but it's got 2 huge tool kits on it, a huge diesel tank and DEF tank, a welder, air compressor, and then in the box of the truck is oil and coolant and all the other things we might need to maintain our equipment. We got one of our semis in the background there, another combine, and our tractor and grain cart. So that's the view each morning at harvest for us as we do maintenance and fuel up before we go. And the bottom is a drone picture of our yard. It's a work in progress. My brother and I had to start a new farm yard, so this is the start of it. That's kind of a snapshot of all the things you would need to start up a grain farm. So down kind of at the right-hand side of the picture, you will see some smaller sheds. Down there is where our little shop is, our fuel tanks, kind of the maintenance part of the yard. And then as you come back up is the bin yard. Right behind, you can't see it in the picture really, but behind the two big round bins is a grain dryer. And I'm trying to see if you can see it, not really, but there's some propane tanks there, and that's what runs our grain dryer. To the north of it is where we line up some extra equipment and some grain augers. In front of it's kind of hard to see, but you see the 2 combines sitting there. We were ready to go out. big cold storage shed. Inside of there is where you'll see our semis, air seeders sitting in there for the summer, winter, and then more fertilizer and seed bins, and our grain office is in the middle of that. So that's kind of a snapshot of everything that you would see or use on a grain farm. So rewards of being a farmer, for me, the number one is working with family. When I was writing this presentation, I was trying to think of any other job there is that you can work with family, take your kids to work, and accomplish and have a career. And I can't think of another one. So I consider myself very lucky, as much as it can be hectic or stressful having the time with your family or your kids. It's a blessing to me. Being my own boss is great. Feeding the world, that's what farmers are doing, right? We're producing food and we're feeding the world. And the other thing that I love about farming is every single day is different. Even if you've done a task 100 times over, you're probably doing it different each time. So you're never going to get bored with repetition being a farmer. But there is lots of challenges. Busy seasons are extremely demanding. There's no joke when you hear that farmers are in the field for 18 hours a day or outside working for 18 hours a day. That is extremely true. Our windows of time that we can get our crop in the ground, maintain our crop, and get our crop off are very, very limited by Mother Nature. It's a very high stress, high pace lifestyle. We lay it all on the line. The crop that we put into the ground, all of our energy and money and work goes into that. And it's also very high pace. As I said, seeding can be like a 3-week window and harvest is like a 6 to 8 week window. And spraying, sometimes you only have 24 hours to get a certain chemical put on a certain crop. So it's very high pace and very demanding that way. And you're completely at the mercy of the weather and markets. You can do everything you want to produce your crop, but then it's at the mercy of the weather. And it's not a paycheck benefit based job. So there is no paycheck every 2 weeks or every month. And there's no benefit package that comes in with that. So you get paid very differently. Usually you get paid when your crop goes to market. So for some farmers, you're living off of one paycheck a year. It just depends how your operation is set up, but you definitely are not living a 2-week paycheck. So they wanted me to talk about salaries and benefits of a farmer. And as I've kind of touched, that is different than most other occupations. And it's extremely dependent on your farm and your operation, because this is one thing, being your own boss and owning your own business, you can do your own way. So sometimes there is no benefits. On our farm, we do have a benefit program, but again, we have to pay into that each month. And it just kind of covers the basics, some dental, a little bit of eye care, a little bit of massage, nothing major. But it is 100% dependent on the owner of that farm if they want to pay into a benefit plan. There is no pension. That's up to you and how you want to take care of your savings. Hopefully you're putting money away, but as a business owner, that's on you to take care of. Holidays, nothing is set when you're farming and there's no point planning them. If you're probably going to get away for a holiday, it's going to be in the winter unless you have livestock. But as a grain farmer, if we're going to get away, it's going to be in the winter. But you have to be very adaptable. Even if you wanted to go away to a city for a weekend, get away, or to the lake, with 12 hours notice, you could be spraying. So you've got to be very adaptable. And when you get away, typical work hours change all the time. As I said, seeding, spraying, harvest, we're in the field for 12 to 18 hours a day. But then in the winter, when you're maintaining or hauling grain, you're a lot more flexible around those times. So it just depends on each farm. Educational requirements. So again, with farming, there's no set in stone requirement, but any post-secondary education is going to help you. As a few slides back, I talked about all the different things and assets to be a farmer. So you can go in a lot of different directions. For me, I went into agronomy, did some livestock production, and then went into agronomy. But there's so many different things that you could take to help yourself become a better farmer. From agronomy, management, engineering, trades would be a very big one. My brother that I farm with is a journeyman welder, and that comes in very, very handy on the farm when he's fixing things. And then there's a lot of economics on the farm with owning your own business. So any of those would be awesome. And I would say that working in the industry, in the agriculture industry, is a great asset to bring back to the farm. I did it, and it definitely helped me take over the business more successfully. And again, I'm going to mention that the 1A is an asset. So my journey becoming a farmer definitely didn't go as my initial plan. So I guess that would be my advice. Again, stay adaptable. So I have always wanted to farm, and that is the one thing that hasn't changed. I am here today doing it. But if you would have asked me when I was a little kid what I was doing, or in high school what I was doing, I would have told you it was farming. So from high school, I went on to college. I went to Lakeland College in Vermilion, Alberta to take agriculture. But back then we had cattle, and I was more into the livestock than the grain part of our operation. So I applied and got accepted into a 2-year program called livestock production. After I was in that for the first semester, my dad was kind of in my ear every second day saying, you know, Lexie, I think if you come back to the farm, you're really going to have to look at how you're going to do this. I don't know if the livestock can stay around here forever. And in the midst of that first semester, I also met my now husband. And he is not a farmer. He's not from a farm, and he wasn't going to farm. And we knew that when we started dating. So I needed to kind of twist my thinking a little bit. And I give my dad a lot of credit on that one, because he started that in my mind. He was proud of me for taking livestock, but he could see the future, and he kind of pushed me to go to the grain side. So in knowing that, at Christmas, I decided to come home. We calved in February. So it worked well for me to just step away from college that first year, reset my plans, come home for a semester, help with calving. And then the following September, I went back to Lakeland and took and finished a 2-year diploma called crop technology, which I majored in agronomy. So I graduated in 2010, still dating the guy that I met at school, the non-farmer, and we headed home. My husband owns a tire shop about an hour and a quarter away from where my farm is. So when we graduated after being up at Lakeland College for the 2.5-3 years there, we knew he wanted to take over his business and I wanted to take over my business. So we had to figure out how to do that together, but apart. So I went and worked in the industry for a couple of years while farming. We still had my dad, my uncle, and some cousins farming. So there was enough people on the farm to do the day-to-day tasks for me to go work off farm. That also allowed me to have my kids and have some other income to help pay for daycare. As I mentioned earlier, with farming, there was no set in stone salary or 2-week paycheck. So this was a really nice offset. It also allowed me to get to a town that would have a daycare. So I was able to drive somewhere, drop off my kids, then go to work, come back, get my kids, and go to the farm. And for us, it was very hectic, but it was the best thing that we could have done at that time. So I worked off farm from graduating in 2010 to 2016. So I worked for 6 years off the farm while still farming, but it allowed me to raise my kids and have some other income, and most importantly, get some other hands-on education and knowledge. So had my kids in 2012 and 14, and then went farming in 2016. And then my brother and I took over the farm in 2017, officially. So it's been a fun journey, time flies, and here we are farming together. So if you would have asked me in 2007 what my plan was, I was farming, and that hasn't changed. Just how I got there is what has changed. And my advice would be to be adaptable. Plans are going to change, and if you want something as much as you think you want it, you will get there. Your end goal will happen. You might just have to change your journey a little bit. So opportunities with farming are endless, and as I said, working in the industry. So I honestly think that agriculture is the most desirable industry in Canada, especially in Saskatchewan. We are feeding a growing world population, and that's not going to change. So you don't necessarily have to farm if you are interested in agriculture. And if you are really interested in farming itself, and there is no way for you to have your own farm, there's a lot of jobs in the ag industry that would have you on a farm on a regular basis. So obviously a farm hand or a hired man, woman, whatever, is the most hands-on you would get with a farm if you didn't own one yourself. But there's also lots of other jobs, people we work with every day and on our farm on a regular basis. Our grain broker is one of them, an agronomist, anything in government policy or food trade, we're working with those kind of people on a regular basis. Food production, you can work anywhere from like a grain elevator where we deliver grain to somewhere in the city that actually produces some sort of food, or a flour mill or something like that. An ag teacher. I think that if I was not farming, that's actually what I would be doing. I love teaching and sharing a story. So you could be in a college setting, university setting, something like that. A scientist is huge. As farmers, we actually get to go work with chemical companies and stuff like that. And there is all kinds of engineering and scientific work going on with that. Ag mechanic, can't say enough. We would be absolutely at a standstill if there wasn't mechanics. So from our dealership, there's mechanics that come out on a service call all the time to keep our tractors, drills, sprayers, combines going. And they stop everything they're doing to keep us farmers going at the busy times of the year. Truck driver, you see them on the road all the time. And I think a lot of us don't realize that they're hauling food or they're hauling supplies or equipment for farmers. And there's so many other jobs, but that list right there are people that we work with on a regular basis. So it could be something that you could look into if you weren't on the farm, owning a farm as a farmer every day. Life-work balance. So yes and no, there is a good balance with farming and life. As I said, in the busy season, you're not adaptable at all, but in the winter, you're very much. So I kind of laugh. In our family, we're a big hockey family, so farming works really well with that. I miss some hockey in the fall when it starts up. It's usually going at the start of September, and you won't see me at the rink till the end of October, early November usually. But then I'm very adaptable, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm allowed to do a lot of volunteering and a lot of helping in the winter in our small community, and I really enjoy that. But as soon as the spring rolls around, you're not going to get me off the farm unless it's really set, or I'm lucky that something's not going on at that time. So I'm very hands-on with my kids throughout the winter in their sports, get them through hockey and dance and the start of ball. And then I'm busy on the farm. So it is a good life-work balance, as you are your own farm. You are your own boss and you set your own hours, but to the mercy again of the weather and the markets on your farm. And I think that's the end of my presentation. So if there's any questions, I would be happy to take those.
Thanks a lot, Lexie. That was very well done. I guess one thing I think, and I've asked different farmers this and over the years, is I guess to start with, like, you've been at it for a while, and I know you were active on the farm when you were still in school even. So what changes have you seen in that time period since you've been involved? Like
a few different things. Technology is a huge one. The equipment, even in the few years that I've owned the farm, let alone helping, our equipment's changed. And just the work-life balance, I do see a big change. From my grandpa that never left the farm. Like, it did not matter what was going on. Even if his kids were in something, he would maybe go watch, but you wouldn't see him as hands-on as then my dad. You've seen him transition. The farm was first, but sports were a close second, to now that we definitely put our kids in sports and volunteering in our community more ahead of the farm. There's definitely times we can't leave, and there's nothing we can do about that, but I do see a big shift in the life work community farm balance.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that from somebody before. I'm not surprised about the technology. So any looking into the future, like, what do you think farms will look like, a grain farm will look like 20 years from now?
I think you're gonna unfortunately keep seeing the land bases get larger, and I say that unfortunately because the small farms, I think, are disappearing, and That's just the reality of the markets and how big equipment is now. It doesn't have anything to do with the age, but it's how big our equipment is nowadays so that we can produce as much food as this growing world needs. You're also going to see like driverless equipment. And I know that that seems out there, but it's not. It's already here and we're already testing it. When we go to shows like Ag in Motion and Crop Production Show and some of those, you're seeing that technology already. But that's very important because getting enough help on the farm is extremely, extremely hard. The multi-generation, the kids taking over the farm, the family farm is few and far between as well. So I think the technology is going to be the biggest change that we'll see.
Okay, thanks. Renette, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I want to thank Lexie. I truly appreciate the list of jobs that you've included, indicating what agriculture really is. You know, it's not just the farmer in the field anymore. And that whole multi-generational thing is going by the wayside. You know, let's say you've got a student watching this who isn't from a farm, that would maybe like to farm but doesn't have the opportunity because the farm is going to be passed down. Is there anything more you'd like to add to or to help that student make that call, or is it more just the other jobs in agriculture that they really have access to?
Oh, no, absolutely. To that student, I would say go find a job on the farm, become a hired help on somebody's farm. And if you end up, like in our case, we've had some really long-term help on our farm that end up turning into family. And there's actually a neighbor of ours down the road. That's how their operation is. What was the hired help came in and now owns half of the farm. So the original owners that hired him had grain, the hired help came in and ended up buying livestock, and they completely worked together. So if you are really set on farming and you don't have that generational buy-in, starting as a hired help is definitely the first step. Find a farm that you fit in with. And if your first job, if you're there for a couple of years and it's not the one, definitely look around and find another farm. There is endless amounts of jobs available in Saskatchewan right now on a family farm or on a corporate farm. And I would say that would be the best step to start with.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's important for students to know that farming truly is a business. You know, there is that connection to the dirt, you know, that we all had with our parents and our grandparents. But, you know, if they look at that as being a business, and like you said, the opportunity to buy in like any other company, that's something to consider. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I don't think I have any further questions, Lexie. That was really well done. So thank you very much for that. And it's I'm glad to see. I know I can remember you back in the classroom back as a keen student, but I'm not surprised to see you farming today, because that was always something that I thought that you had on your mind, and you said that today, and I'm not surprised that you're enjoying it, and I've been very successful with it. So kudos to you and to your family for keeping that family farm alive. So well done. So thank you very much.
Thank you.